Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband Jim, and we are going to talk about artificial intelligence. But we have an exciting thing today. We actually have a guest on, Richard, otherwise known as RJ. And RJ, could you pronounce your last name? Because I know I will absolutely butcher your last name if I try to
She really
pronounce it.
will. She really will.
Yes, it is Kedziora, and thank you for having me. But what's really interesting, a quick aside about Kedziora and the pronunciation of my name. The last meeting I was just having, they used ChatGPT to figure out how to pronounce it, and it actually
I
gave
thought of
them
that.
the Polish pronunciation, Kedzierski, which I was
Interesting.
like, wow. You know, quick aside.
Well, RJ is actually a co-founder of Estenda, which he has over 25 years of software product design, development, and management experience. Now, I know that at Estenda, you focus on people and process management and provide strategic technical direction, guidance, and innovation insights into creating cost-effective digital health solutions, which is very interesting to me. And what you're doing there is you're making a difference in people's lives. So you help them live longer and healthier. And I know that your work has also won multiple awards, including a HIMSS. Is that a acronym for?
Health Information Management Systems Society. It's
Right.
been around
It's
for 30 or 40 years, one of the biggest health IT organizations.
Well, that's awesome. And they also won Health 2.0 Outstanding Leadership Award, which is amazing. So we are very happy to have you on the podcast today. Jim and I talk a lot about health and AI. As our listeners know, we have parents who are becoming elderly, and we are always very, very concerned about their life quality, the quality that they have. So what I want to know, the first question I want to pose to you is what motivated you? What motivated you to get involved in digital health solutions? And actually follow up to that immediately is what is digital health?
Great questions. I enjoy problem solving, challenges, trying to figure out, how to do the next thing. And healthcare is one of the last industries to really embrace data. And there's just so many unsolved problems in healthcare. That's really what drove me in this direction. Estenda's been around for 20 plus years now, so it's crazy that I can talk about decades of doing this, but it is just that. It's problem solving, but then I have a greater impact. Me personally, Estenda as a company, a doctor is out there doing great work, treating, one patient, two patients at a time kind of thing. We're helping companies and other doctors, health systems develop solutions that are treating, lots of patients. So we can have a very outsized impact on people's health and wellness, developing the solutions we have over the years, which is just a great feeling.
Every time I get a scan done or something at a doctor's office, I can't even find it half the time. They talk about it. They're going to do this with, are you going to help with that? Is that the problem you're helping with? Because I'm getting tired of my scans being, it's like, I just got this done. Can we not pull it up on our screen here and discuss it? Or where does it go? I mean,
Okay, so Jim, what you're saying, I was actually going to kind of say something similar. When I graduated from high school, I moved to Austin, Texas, and I started working for a neurologist. And I did all of their medical record keeping. And of course, that was back in the old days when you actually physically pulled a chart off of a shelf that had the patient's last name, first name, and you chart noted everything about the visit. We would get blood work in, and we would get scan information in, and we would put it all in there. And then if they had to go to other locations, their digital footprint did not exist. Nothing was digitized. So when you talk about digital health, that's the first thing I think about is in the context of a digital footprint. Is that similar at all to what you do there at your company, or am I totally wrong?
No, you are on track. Digital health is the use of technology, computers in providing patient care and managing it. It's using data to improve that health and wellness, the lifespan, and also health span. You talked about like your elderly parents kind of thing, having a good quality of life. That's the second component. I want to live to 100, but have a good health span, good quality of life as I get older. Our work typically focuses on that patient care side, either physician facing, healthcare practitioner facing, where we're helping interpret data from the electronic medical record or from wearables, glucose monitors, heart rate, blood pressure, those types of things, interpreting that data, finding interesting patterns, providing advice, or directly to the patient, helping them improve their health and wellness kind of thing. We've never done anything with billing, but a lot of stuff with the interoperability of what you're just talking about. And Jim, love to say I can help with your challenges today, but that is a huge industry challenge. The idea of interoperability and moving data around to and fro kind of thing. It is getting better. It still has a long way to go. So I wouldn't expect any solutions tomorrow, but it is quickly changing. A big driver in the industry in 2007, 2008, the administration pushed the idea of electronic medical records. That really was a big boon to the industry. Now, those paper charts where you couldn't get to any of that information, you couldn't use it.
Mhm.
Now all that data is electronic,
So let's
and make use of it.
so let's talk about that for a second, because I know you have been involved in artificial intelligence before what we currently have that we consider artificial intelligence, like the machine learning. I know that you said that you have a degree, and you had actually considered going on and getting like additional college PhD type of stuff. How's it gone from that machine learning piece that was 4 years ago to what it's becoming now with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, with the advent of Gen AI, everybody has sort of lost the memory of there used to be AI machine learning before Gen
They
AI.
have. Everybody,
Mhm.
it's all in their title now. Everybody's got that in their title now.
Yeah,
We noticed that too.
yeah. But it has been around for quite a while. The idea of AI goes back to the 50s and 60s. It's not new. What's new is really Gen AI. So even going back to my, early 90s college days kind of thing, I was involved in like expert systems, genetic algorithms was another way of doing it. But it was all about predictive modeling, predictive analysis. That's probably the biggest sort of thing, through the 90s into the early 2000s, and how can we predict what's going to happen. Expert systems was a big thing. We've done a bunch of projects over the years of expert systems, which are always interesting because it's how do you code all of those rules into a system such that when it's presented with a problem or a challenge, you can come out with an interesting and useful advice. I one point, a long time ago now, as I think about it, but sat in a room with a dozen endocrinologists, people who treat patients with diabetes, and we had case studies of like, okay, here's their medical information, here's their blood glucose information, and if there was 10 physicians in that room, there was 12 opinions on what to do with that patient. So it's like they just turned to me and like, okay, how are you going to do this? How are you going to put this in the computer? So it was definitely very challenging to do, but that's part of why I love it and figuring out.
So, okay, I don't know. There was a movie a long time ago. I have to just put this in there real quick. There was a movie a long time ago that I absolutely loved. It was about these people that were in medical school. And there was a scene in the movie to where one of the students, who was very cocky, medical student, was in the professor's office, and the professor handed him a chart. And she took the front page out of it, so he didn't know who it was. And she was like, here's the chart. I want you to look, and I want you to tell me what this person has. Diagnose this person.
Mhm.
I see that, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of data. The chart was like 3 inches thick.
Right.
I see how artificial intelligence / Gen AI today could make that so much faster to find those patterns and find those things that the human eye can't necessarily, draw those correlations and come up with possibilities that then the human could, go down the road and see if that is what it is. So is that where you see this kind of evolving to? You gave me some specific examples, but is that where you see AI going in digital health?
So couple things there. Think of, okay, the doctor that goes to medical school, graduates top of his class, passes the boards, top of the boards. He's called doctor. Take another person, graduates from the worst medical school, the bottom of his class, just passes boards. What do you call him?
A doctor.
A doctor.
Exactly. Doctors are human. Doctors are
Absolutely.
incredible in what they do every day. Don't get me wrong. Like, they are incredible in what they can do. I'm amazed when, when I go to my doctors over the years and stuff, what they are capable of doing, but they're also human. So being able to ingest all of that information in that chart, and what's interesting is a paper chart is very easy to flip through. A paper book is very easy to flip through and kind of like, if you look at the electronic medical record now, it's a lot more difficult to get the overall gestalt, okay, what is really going on with this patient? And that's where then Gen AI comes in these days in terms of taking all of that information, presenting it in a useful fashion to the physician, to the nurse, to be able to make better educated decisions. But there's another side of that. I saw this stat the other day, medical knowledge doubles every 5 years. You can't keep up with that. No human can, but the computers and the technology can. So as an interesting patient comes to a physician with a problem, a challenge kind of thing, one, they can get to that solution faster and bring in the most relevant recent medical knowledge, research that is out there to apply it to that condition. And doing a lot of that in cancer, because cancer is so much of a unique, personalized type of situation.
That leads to the next question. Do you think that what you just discussed, is going to be the biggest benefit of AI in healthcare? Or is there something else that you actually think is going to be the biggest benefit that AI is going to bring to healthcare?
I take it to the next level. So the use of AI within a medical encounter with that healthcare practitioner, hugely powerful. Lots of potential there. But how often do you as an individual go see your doctor? You're not there very often.
Not if we can avoid it.
Exactly. And the US healthcare system is focused on the idea of sick care. You get sick,
True.
go to the doctor.
It's true.
It's slowly changing to value-based care, where the doctors, the health systems, the networks are encouraged to keep you out of the office, and they're incentivized, they actually get money and payments to make sure that their population they're treating, their patients, are healthier and out of the office. But where does your day-to-day health really get impacted? Not when you're in the office, it's what you do outside of the office. And that's where I think as this future progresses and the capabilities of the AI improves, it's how do we help improve the health and wellness of people in their day-to-day lives through the power of technology. I wear one of the rings. The Apple Watch tells you all sorts of information now about what's going on.
One of those too.
Yeah.
We wear one. My daughter has the ring, so yeah.
Yeah, I switched from the Apple Health Watch because I just it's too much. I didn't like it, kind of thing. So I went to the ring. Love it much more. I race triathlon, so just being able to have that heart rate metrics during my physical training and everything is huge. But getting that feedback and that personalized feedback, that information is very powerful. It's like, okay, what did I do when I slept last night? And it's like, okay, you had good sleep, you bad sleep. What's interesting is, like, okay, I do wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I had an awful night of sleep. So how much is it really telling me, kind of thing? And I'm still challenged by it. The Aura ring, which is what I happen to wear, no relationship or, financial conflicts of interest there, kind of thing. But they just added an AI feature, so it's like when I, didn't sleep well last night, it's like, okay, well, why? And it gives you very general feedback still. I wanted to drill down into like, okay, here's what we know about you as an individual. And here's
well, it's funny that you say that. Our daughter is very much so. She loves the ring that she wears. It's same brand. And she's constantly like sending me a text message, and she'll say, Mom, my sleep score last night was a 50, or my sleep score was a 60. And so before she's been doing this for a while, and she hasn't been using like the AI component at the time, but it actually made her think about Okay, is it too bright in my bedroom? Should I move my dog's kennel to a different room? Because is my dog in the kennel, moving around in the middle of the night? So, yeah, I mean, she was already getting in data, just the human part of her was getting in the data. But with an AI capability, then it could possibly make, all of those suggestions you might not think about. So, is that what you think the pie in the sky is going to be? Is going to be,
before we go to pie in the sky, I got a question
sorry.
on this particular topic. You were talking about all of this possibilities. You have a very similar background to me. I mean, mine's hardware and software. Yours is mostly software, but again, same time frame, same development thing. So when you think about, years ago, I was having some health issues. So I got a notebook out and I literally wrote down every single thing I could possibly measure at the time about myself, including when I went to the bathroom. I mean, I had a quality matrix on when I went to the bathroom. When I took it to the doctor, they not only didn't appreciate it, they had no desire to see it at all. As a matter of fact, they said they noted in my chart engineer, like it was some kind of disease that was attached to it.
You get the flag in your chart.
I got a flag in my chart. So how do you perceive? Because you could become very paranoid with all of this. If you started attaching AI and if it gave you too much, it may be just as bad as giving you too little. Have you seen this with your involvement with medical and AI and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, a couple different things there. And personally, myself, because I have been in the industry and worked this, I was involved in like some of the early tech in terms of heart rate monitoring, where it's like under your shirt, you're running wires to different leads and stuff like that. And now it's so much better. But I overwhelmed myself in my training with the information and the data kind of thing. And this was years ago, and took a step back from it and just then started running based on feel and not using any metrics because it was just too much. It's like, okay, I went out for a run today and I wasn't faster than the other day and I was 2 seconds slower, and it's like,
yeah, I did the same thing you're talking about, and I injured myself a few times just competing with myself.
Yeah. So I learned how to balance that. So there is that aspect of balance and not overwhelming the consumer of that information, but it's the same thing with the physician trying to deal with that information today. So many people, I work with startups and advising startups. There's so many point solutions. It's like, how many different people can go to a physician with a different application, show them this data, and expect them to consume this in that 7 to 10 minutes you have during your appointment, and make something meaningful out of it. That's where I think that pie in the sky is the next step. That in the healthcare profession doesn't like hearing this, but it's where we're taking that human out of the equation to be able to make a difference and an impact in them. There's a mental health crisis in the United States. There are not enough mental health professionals out there. And so there's this idea of digital therapeutics, which are implementing AI solutions as one of the things that they're doing. But that digital therapeutic is the equivalent of the pill, the medication that a prescriber prescribes to you. It's gone through FDA review and approval kind of thing. So it can make that level of difference.
So that leads to the next question, and I think we've already kind of answered it just a little bit, is the obstacle. What is the biggest obstacle that you're going to have to, overcome before we can see the true benefits of what AI can do in healthcare? And I know what my opinion is, and I think Jim's is probably the same. But what about you, RJ? What do you think the biggest obstacle?
And especially in the context of the company that you have, since you're in the industry, we're kind of interested in the obstacles you're seeing already and perceive you're going to see based on your experience in the healthcare industry.
Yeah, that's the first things that pop into my head of, like my day to day, what do I have to deal with kind of thing, and talking to startups and other organizations. It's interoperability is the biggest challenge that is out there today. There are approaches, we moved from, back in the 80s, 90s, and when Estenda got started in the early 2000s, it was used what's called HL7, which was, messages, being sent back and forth. And now there's what's called the FHIR protocol, FHIR, which is API based. And the big advantage of the API base is there's just a lot more people out there that understand how to use it you still have to overcome, the challenges of understanding that healthcare data. But when I think about interoperability, it's not just moving data, because that's relatively easy to do. People are moving data all over the place. But for AI and these future technologies to really take advantage of that information, it's understanding that data. So different practices, different health systems, or different populations of people are coding information differently, and you have to understand those differences. So one of the things that we're faced with today as an industry and as a company is when you do develop these AI solutions and you're training it on data with a particular health system and their population, even when they go through FDA review to say, yes, this is good, when you go somewhere else, you have to cross-check it again against their population to make sure this algorithm still works. Because when you're training an AI system, you're effectively bringing in the biases of that data. So you really got to be careful and understanding that, and how you can look at that. And one of the things that still amazes me this today is just women are underrepresented in the healthcare data out there in clinical research studies to this day. There was a research earlier this year that was, did that study and was like, okay, how much are women represented in clinical research? And it's still underrepresented today, so you have to be careful of that bias when you implement these algorithms. So yeah, I think for me, it comes down to that interoperability of how do you move data around, making sure it's current, so there are various health systems, and then you have the idea of like centralized data exchanges, in regions across the country. And it's like, okay.
But then you start talking about privacy and privacy
Privacy.
breaches and, all the stuff that people are paranoid about putting their, I went to an eye doctor yesterday, and it's totally off topic, but, on the piece of paper they gave me, they wanted me to give my social security number. And I was like, no, I mean, I'm not going to write down my social security number for just anyone to see. And so we do have some paranoia. So when you start talking about centralized location of data, I can see how that would also cause a little bit of an obstacle that you'd have to overcome.
It's interesting you mentioned about interoperability, because even at a small scale, Maurie, in her day job as a system administrator at the school, basically she's the data person at our school from the technology department. And we have to upload all this data for the state. And one of the problems she has is they can't consistently decide how to designate a class as a geometry class.
Well, it's all the way down to just the data being, okay, do you know how many ways there are to say geometry class? You have GEO, which probably shouldn't stand for geometry, or you have geometry, or algebra is even worse, or English language arts, ELAR, LA, English language arts, English lit. I mean, so there's all these different ways to describe it. And when you actually take that human description and put it in a spreadsheet, it's very, very difficult to deal with. Anyway, we are going to be running out of time pretty soon. So I want to go ahead and I want to ask you the last two questions. Okay. So this one, if I wanted to get involved in digital medicine, and the reason I wanted to ask this is we do have a daughter that has a CS degree from UT Austin, and she actually got a minor in the business of healthcare because she was always very interested in healthcare, specifically underrepresented females in clinical stuff. So where could she look to work, or what companies, other than yours, of course, would she need to be watching, and what skills would be important for her to have other than just a CS degree?
She just come work for me.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell her.
Just come work for me. I would say go work at a health system, not an individual like practice or anything like that, a bigger health system, because you need to learn and understand healthcare. It is one, from the business of healthcare runs, two, how healthcare is delivered today and where it's going, and being embedded in that. So, Mayo, Cleveland Clinic, Intermountain Healthcare, Geisinger, which is here in the Pennsylvania area, Scripps, University of Texas, they have a big healthcare system. Where you guys are, these are the institutions that are well known for their implementation of digital health. and being there, gaining that firsthand experience is huge. And then
Okay.
once you start figuring that out, then you can be like, okay, what do I want to do with my career? Where do I want to go? And gaining that firsthand experience. In terms of skills and things to look at, data science, data management, ability to understand and manipulate data. It's not going away. It's getting more and more complex, and there's going to be, an ever increasing need for that. And that ties in and that drives into like the AI and use of those two systems. But
Mhm.
I always think with my experience, and I do have that technology background, but I also, people and process are important. So empathy,
Mm.
develop your skill of understanding the experience of the people that are being treated. The person with diabetes, the person with multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, what are they going through? Depression, what is
Right.
their journey like? When we onboard new people or start new projects, we provide a lot of training around that. So, the
Mhm.
developers, the quality assurance people can better understand that. And there's just, in our case, there's just so much information available on the internet. It's amazing to be able to experience that from a healthcare professional. How do you treat that person? How do you help that person? But then also that firsthand experience of what they go through.
Awesome. I'm headed to her house this evening. I will tell her what you said. She works for a corporation right now in Austin, a large corporation, and that's what she does, data analytics for them.
Hmm.
But you mentioned the preventative thing. One of the things she texted me the other day, and she was like, "Mom, I'm going to get like $300 because I've from the company because I've done X number of hours of aerobics at my gym." And so they're basically giving them incentives to stay healthy, so that
Yeah.
because they're self-insured. And so they don't want to have a lot of things on their insurance policy, get hit with um, chronic illnesses and stuff like that. So last question, we only have a few minutes. Ethical considerations. I know we've mentioned that big data center where we're talking about, but what other ethical considerations do you think other people need to take into account when you're putting AI into healthcare?
Uh, First, I would say the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm.
Hmm.
Because you do have to be aware of the impact that these systems can have. Um, the ease with which they hallucinate or make up stuff. They sound really good,
They
but
They
want to
do.
please. Yeah,
it's easy to make it up.
we tell teachers all the time when we're doing teacher training, if they don't have the context that they need to give you the correct answer, they're still going to give you an answer.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
still going
like
to give you an answer, and there are ways to mitigate that, but you can't completely get rid of it. We talked about bias. I would worry about bias and the equity and fairness in those algorithms. There's a lot of discussion about in healthcare, particularly about transparency and how an AI comes up with the solution. I'm not so worried about that in my opinion. Like I don't know how the doctor comes up with their decision making and that the algorithm running in their brain. I don't know how that works. So
Mhm.
I think that's secondary from that perspective. But above all, in that ethical, you have to think about risk and
Mhm.
how is what you're doing. What is the risk factors associated with that? How do you eliminate or mitigate those? It's in all of our projects. It's built into our processes is looking at everything from that perspective of risk. The EU passed and it's going into effect an AI Act. That's like the biggest component of it, thinking about risk and based on the level of risk and what kind of regulations have to, be applied to it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, think about risk.
Okay. Jim, do you have any additional questions that you wanted to talk to RJ about?
No, we could probably talk about healthcare for another hour, but I think we should probably
Easily.
wrap it up.
Okay. All right. Well, RJ, I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast today. Do you have anything, last things that you need to share that you want the audience to know? Only like, what's the next thing that you are doing there at your company?
Yeah, please check out our website, estenda.com, estenda.com. We got 2 white papers coming out pretty soon. One just on digital health frameworks and how that assessment happens. But now we're also in the midst of doing an analysis of all these AI trust frameworks out there. So many
Awesome.
governments and entities are putting these frameworks out. So we're going to sort of drive an overview of that.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being on. We appreciate it. And for you guys listening, my name's Maurie, and I'm here with my husband, Jim. We are AI in Action. We talk about artificial intelligence at least once a week so that Jim can do a core dump and stop waking me up in the mornings. And we hope that you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.
Do we need to stay on for a minute?